Well, hello everyone on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. It is Wednesday, so I am Will, and I'm here because I just love sharing inspiration. I love introducing this community, which is an incredible community, to people who've inspired me. So today we're going to talk about vulnerability, and we've got Carl Shawn Watkins in the green room. But before I bring him out, just want to thank you all for the endless support. Please, in the comments here, type where you are tuning in from, because I'd love to see how global this community is, and also if you are on Team Live or Team Replay. So again, I'll set this up before I bring Carl on stage, or as those who really know and love him, Rev, up on stage. We will talk about vulnerability. I do this because I'm an enthusiast. I love to connect people. And what better way to do it in a format that's live and unscripted than to do that here? So this community is all about leadership, kindness, sharing with one another. And with that, I want to be able to bring up Carl. He's patiently waiting in the green room. There you are. Hey, Rev.
Hey, what's going on, man? What's going on? How is everybody? Good. It's glad to be here, man. Glad to be here. I am definitely a fan of you and what you do, the work you do, man, the awesome spirit that you have. So I'm very happy to be here today. I'm ready for this conversation, man.
Well, while you introduce yourself, I will go scroll through the comments here and flash our friends up. I think we have many friends in common. I started following you. You know how this world works.
Yes.
You watch one thing, you watch another, you're introduced, and your energy is one that I'm drawn to. You and Charlene. I hope she's in the audience. Hey, Charlene.
Yes.
If not, she's watching the replay.
You got to see my buddy there. Yes.
Yes. So I love tuning in because of your real talk, but I'm going to do something that it's difficult for me. I'm going to try to be quiet to let you talk. So go ahead and introduce yourself to those who do not know you.
Yes, to those who don't know me, we want to thank you again for tuning in. I am just as he says, Rev, as also lovingly called, but I'm Carl Shawn Watkins. I am a vulnerability and DEI consultant, and I added that. So I do coaching, but I added the consulting piece of that because that's how I lay it out to you, because I think everyone that I've ran into thinks they know how to be vulnerable, but I've come across people that majority of the people that I've come across, I put it that way, do not know. So I turn that into more consulting part of that. So you get an understanding and then it transitions into coaching. But I'm also the founder and CEO of Carl Shawn Watkins Consulting. We are a coaching and consulting firm based out of New Jersey in the U.S. for those who are close by. Yes, Michael, I try to keep this beard plus, it doesn't grow up here so much, so it grows down there.
Everybody's always interested in how you keep it so
yes,
sharp.
Yes. I tell people my secret is Afro Sheen. It's an old African American product that you spray on and get your sheen, and it's not greasy. So that's the secret to it. And then I just comb it out for the fullness. So that's the secret. There's no special tips or no $200 barber visits or nothing of that nature. But what really makes working with me the experience different is my thorough knowledge of putting that diversity, equity, and inclusion through the lens of the vulnerability piece. And I do that a lot with leaders and leaderships, and I do that everything from one-on-one to coaching programs to actual teams and corporate arenas as well. I do trainings, seminars, summits, you name it. I do it because I think that is a major part of, we talk about leadership, but it begins with the individual. So if we can get the individual to realize their attributes, characteristics, and the things that make them, they can get empowered by that to empower others. And that's really what I do. I've been doing this on this sessions, on this global screen since the pandemic. I think I kind of put it out there just like everyone else has. But during my course of my little small circle, I worked in leadership for over 30 years. I probably trained, taught, or guided about 1,000 so leaders, executive coaches, about 200 or so in there. Stop keeping numbers because I don't think numbers are important. The transformations are really what's important, and exactly. That's really what I do. So that's me in a nutshell.
What I always love about you and tuning into your broadcasts, you really just you do. I mean, one of your events is called Real Talk. You
Real
and
talk.
Charlene do that, and I just love that. So today we're going to talk about vulnerability, but
Mhm.
you're also a DEI expert,
Yes.
and I think this gets to be a topic that is difficult. And I can tell you,
Yeah.
tuning into one of your shows with Charlene, I had asked a question in the comments about, well, I certainly don't, I certainly, being a leader of people who worked on the front lines, I managed a diverse group of people. But when
Mhm.
you're in that in between and you're reporting into the executive suite, they're not so diverse. Let's just face
Yeah.
it. And it's not anything that we're just, I'm not trying to trash anybody, but it's not. And you do get it's a struggle sometimes to be that conduit. And so you and Charlene mostly had said, well, how long did it take to get here to start having the conversation? You can't give up or you can't get frustrated. You have to keep going. So today, I want your point of view, and I'm going to ask the audience to put their comments and questions in the chat. But
Definitely.
how do we all support DEI initiatives? And also, to you, what vulnerability is for leaders. I put a quote that I took from your website.
Okay.
Everything you want is right on the other side of vulnerability. So now I'm going to keep my promise, be quiet, turn it over to you, DEIA and vulnerability.
Yeah, I think I think the essence of where I bought that from, I put it in the circumference of the leadership. And this is from years of experience of not only being a leader myself, but also being in the space of leaders. And I can't imagine or not even tell you that it would be a surprise to you. I've been in leadership where no one there looks like me, and there are still vast amounts of corporations that are doing business every day that are not that are people that are in charge of giving orders or passing them down or are leading are not looking like me. Now the aspect of that is just a lot of people say, oh, DI, we're just talking about that color thing. I'm not. It's so wide broad than that. It's far than that. I think the diversity piece of which I really hone in on it, and even with the equation that I've created, diversity plus vulnerability equals inclusion. What that brings about is the differentness of everybody, the diverse talent, the diverse nature, education, understanding, culture. All of those things are viable to every single corporation. So when we kind of put certain ones to the shelf, or we kind of delve in deeper to certain ones, we're really cutting off or handicapping ourselves to growth. And regardless of whether we agree with cultures, because all of us has grown up vastly. But one thing, Will, that is really, I wouldn't say surprised me because I've kind of experienced that not on the online presence, but what I've experienced through talking to people in Malaysia, the Philippines, Germany, Europe, the UK, Ireland, all over the country, people's lives are parallel. I've talked to people that had the same upbringing that I had that lived thousands of miles away from me. Their homes and their fathers and their mothers disciplined and brought down the same kind of metrics that I was raised on. And oftentimes we get into this emotional thing of seeing someone that doesn't look like me and we get petrified. But we need to have those continuing conversations. And that's what I try to do through the DEI framework. I went through that avenue because it's so easy to ingratiate those kind of thought processes in that because it's already a lot of entanglement of, okay, they're diverse, there's equity involved there's inclusion. How do we match this? Vulnerability is the outlier that's in there for everybody to be. And if I can delve down into how I feel about things and express them, I can get the connections necessary to connect with diverse people that to make that connection inclusive. And then I can start inviting them into the parties. I say a saying, I think someone has said it before I did quite, I'm not sure who, but I added a part to it. And I think they said diversity was being asked to dance. And I think inclusion was, no, diversity was being asked to the dance. And I think inclusion was asked to be danced. But
To,
I put in
to be
there,
on that dance floor, right? Right.
yeah, and I put in there with vulnerability is knowing your dancing partner. And in
Right.
the essence of that, this is the place to where we have to get. And when I say that, people get so stigmatized and, oh, I got to share everything. Vulnerability is individual. You are in control of it, but it's so It's so essential to not let others control how we use it. And this is how people have gotten me understanding. And I thought that with Merriam-Webster. I really dive into the dictionary meaning of that because it's highlighted with the first three definitions: harmful, fearful, destructive. They use those in sentences to describe vulnerability. So if I look that up in the dictionary and I want to get an understanding, that already puts a connotation to that's something I shouldn't be dealing with. That's
Right.
something I shouldn't be doing it. And it's far from that. I use the analogy a lot of times of being locked in the closet. And if I have the key to the closet and I'm locked in the closet, I tell this to CEOs and C-suiters all the time. You have the ability or you have the understanding of everything within that closet. You can ingratiate yourself with everything in that closet. You know about everything in that closet. But the key thing about that is it's nobody has access to anything in that closet but you. And you don't have access to anything outside of that
Right.
closet. But until we accept the possibility of maybe this is going to be a fair relationship, maybe our collaboration won't work. Maybe it won't. When we start taking those on as part of life, like we do with every other risk we take, I think it'll be an acceptable phase for all of us, not only just leaders, but us individually. They don't look like each other. To far understand, we're like each other more than we think.
I find, and our spiritual roots, and we talked about this earlier, but
Yes.
being connected, and I just see my entire career up until now, and my previous career, being able to manage large teams of people
Hmm.
here in New York City. So New York City, the workforce that's working with the public and working with your customers represents the world. And then I worked in a place where we absolutely welcomed in the world. So it wasn't anything that I was doing that I thought it was a class, but it wound up to be a master class because staff members and visitors came from around the world. They didn't speak your language necessarily or understand your cultures, but when you go to that human level, right? You go to that human, like, hey, Carl, you're just a guy. Let's figure this out together. You're trying to help. You bring your humanity into it. So in terms of, and I have another quote here or a description about vulnerability.
Hmm.
Vulnerability is so essential
Hmm.
because I think we're living in maybe, and I'm not getting political here, but when we're living in a time in a world where everyone's afraid to make a mistake. You
Yeah.
can't be wrong. You can't ever show that you're vulnerable, right? In certain leadership positions, you're supposed to be the top of your game. But I find that leaders that I am gravitated towards are the ones that, yeah, I kind of really screwed that up. Or or when I'm working with a team, they'll call you out and saying, "Do you realize how stupid that is or how wrong that is?" And being able to listen. So I'm assuming what you're saying is that vulnerability is just being raw. And I'm going to go back into the comments here because you're just lighting them up.
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Well, and I'll even take the edge off of being raw. I'll take that edge off so no one gets the fearfulness of that connotation and me being a wordsmith. I love to use words that invite people for
Mm,
discussion and not threaten them or scare them. It's about being real, and I think that we've lost the connectivity of what real truly is.
right.
We put on these many personas and masks. I wrote a post a few months back that I put on LinkedIn and talking about the mask and how easily we shift into and out of them, from everything from leaving home to our drive to work to actually being in the office. We've put on quite a few masks. We have a mask that we wear for traffic. We have a mask that we wear for interaction with our coworkers and colleagues. That mask changes when we're operating or interacting with superiors or supervisors. We just tend to put on a mask. And what I've really correlated in my years of working with people, I don't have to change if I stay the same. And I know that might
Mm.
sound like a Batman and Robin riddle me this,
Yeah,
but
you
it's
don't have to
so
forget your jacket in the office, right?
yeah,
You,
it's so
you
true
just
to the
show up as
aspect.
you are.
If I show up as I am continuously, I'll be respected for who I am continuously. We oftentimes don't garner the respect or garner the notice or garner the things that we seek because in different places with different people. And when I mean that, I don't mean that there's different attitudes and representations based upon where you are. That's definitely not what I'm saying. But a lot of times we put on masks in those places to ingratiate ourselves in that. because we're fearful, and the lack of showing vulnerability or embracing it comes truly from shame. We're shameful from where we're not compared to someone we're always comparing ourselves to. And that's why social media has been such a dungeon to a lot of people, because there's such a comparison ratio there. Maybe it does take 6 steps to make 7 figures. I don't think so. And if they told you that, I'm quite a few, it's maybe 1,600 steps in between the six that they've outlined to tell you that you're going to get to 7 figures. And these kind of things we compare ourselves to because we're not in these realms, and we don't appreciate the value that we bring.
Right.
We're very valuable people. And us being different is the even more powerful value that we should embrace and say, you know what? Will, you live in New York. You probably a different upbringing than I bring. You bring this to the table. Me as a corporate leader, me as an entrepreneur, me as a CEO, I want a diverse thought process
Right.
in my products and services. So therefore, I have solutions that are diverse for those that are seeking them. And this is where we have to get to that correlation to, and we have to invite them to the table. It's time out or not to be working at these workplaces, and we go through the lines down the corridor, and we only see one manifestation of hierarchy. There's got to
Now,
be some. There's got
that's
to
what
be
I
a
wanted
blend.
to ask you. We talked about the pandemic and how this virtual world became possible for all of us.
Yes.
And it's changed everything. Without what's happened in the last couple of years, I couldn't have created what I'm creating now, or even have met you. Right? Chances are the two of us meeting wouldn't ever happen. What other than the event of the lockdown in the virtual world? Are you seeing a shift? Are you feeling that there are people that are leaders who are understanding what it is that you're talking about? Because no business is going to move forward unless you start listening to the people that are doing the work, what your customers have to say. I see it as a follow the money trail, right? Because if you're always looking at your stockholders or your investors and you're trying to please them, that's important, right? Because people are supporting you. But if it's only one-sided, you can have a way better product in the end. You can have a way better business if you start getting all of those voices in and allow yourself to say, yeah, I'm looking at this the wrong way. I need to take a step back and not think that I have all the answers. Are
And,
you seeing that happening more, or is it just my wishful thinking?
no, it's sort of a correlation of both things, William. And when you bring that to the forefront, of course, the main thing that we think about is the pandemic and how that is shift. That was a forced shift, right? That was out of the realm of us being able to have control over. So, of course, in the forcedness, whether it be calamities or changes in climate or what have you, oftentimes you get a surge of those that's in agreement, right? One of the last biggest, greatest ones was 9/11. There's a correlation of togetherness, prayers, love, manifestation of helping your fellow man. All of that resided in the globe at that present point. And it took a calamity for us to get on the same page of which humanity has already called for us to be on for so long a time. I do see a shift in the transition more so away from the calamity piece of the pandemic. For so long, it was that push necessity. Oh, well, I got to change because this is what the rush is. We had a quiet storm of change. We had the pandemic, we had the social unrest, we had the trials, we had the marches. I mean, it was a quiet storm of a lot of different things. And what that brought
All
about is
coming together.
right, and it was a culmination of social consciousness. So, of course, that pushes the envelope of others to say, okay, I can't come out with Good Old Boys Club, or I can't hang and say these sexual harassment things, or it's the Me Too movement. All of this collectively has happened to us over the past 4 or 5 years. So we're looking at it now and saying, okay, we've even said to some, I'm too PC now. I can't even say what I really feel. These are the cautionary tales that we've fallen into. But I can say with a shout of doubt, I've had more client base, more client perspectives, more potential clients to say, no, I really want to make changes about how I think about things in general and how we do business as general. It's slow, but it's like a slow drip. And eventually when the slow drip comes, even if you had a slow drip from your sink, if you leave it stopped up, eventually the water fills. And I think this is where we are right now. We're moving toward a shift of people are getting the understanding, and also the understanding from corporate is that I remember the old song from, I think it was the 80s, "We're Not Gonna Take It."
Yeah, yeah,
And this is
yeah,
what
yeah, yeah.
this is what employees have said, and they've spoken. We've got 500 some thousand jobs that people are not applying for. People don't want to work
Um,
for these companies anymore.
Charlene just did a mic drop in the comments here. Being too PC just kills me, which is so
Yes,
so true.
yes, we can. We have gotten to that. Not we can. I definitely agree with that. We've gotten to the point that we don't even want to have raw conversations, and I use terms raw with that because we're so
Right,
politically correct and infecting or hurting someone or
right,
stepping on the toes of or looking for some reactionary that may cause other issues. But without those conversations, true healing can't begin. And without those conversations, true change can't manifest. So we've got to have those, but we got to have them in these psychological safe spaces where what you say to me, I can take and you can take. And
right.
how we interact, we can grow from instead of it being politically induced, instead of it being colorized
Right.
or polarized. And this is where people have stopped at that today.
And I think too, and then we have a question coming up from Jim Noon, someone I worked with. I just love and adore him. Are you allowed to say love and adore about somebody who's in the HR world? Anyway,
Absolutely.
I love and adore him. But one of the things that I think everyone has in common is if you've got this curiosity about people and you want to be kind, and that's my vibe, right? That's my brand, trying to be kind, because that was just the only way I knew how to get through the day. That was the only way I knew how to get through it. But kindness is not taught for leaders. You're not supposed to be a kind leader. You're supposed to be ruthless. You're supposed to be cracking that whip, if you will, because you're supposed to deliver results. But you can't deliver the best results if you are that person. And it's this shift, I think, that's happened in the culture that you want those to say, hey, stop it. It's just, there's a better way to do it. And there's nothing better than creating that space where the voices in the crowd can step forward and start pointing you to the greatness, not you, the person, but the group to the greatness, because you get a better result when you listen to more voices. Now let me go find Jim, the man that I'm in love with here. Hey, Jim Noon. He has a question for you, Carl.
Sure.
I think it is important to be me and be willing to reveal myself to colleagues in various scenarios. Can you share your thoughts on how to do this effectively, i.e., relating, without making it all about me?
Absolutely. The embracing of the vulnerability is embracing the connection. In about connections, connections are not about you. We seek to connect with other people because it has really nothing to do with us. It's a void that we're trying to fill. And what leaders, I think I did a post and I go to my posts and refer to them often because they're kind of like my guidelines for things I see and say. And I put in a post there. I had a conversation. I had a conversation with an executive not so long ago that we were working together, and he asked me about how can he be more effective with his team. And without hesitation, I told him be vulnerable. I say, show your vulnerability. And his first thing was just like a lot of us do when we hear that word, it's the V word, right? We draw up, we get circumspect, we don't want to talk about it. But I think the correlation of what it brings empowerment to us is it gives us to be the authentic, real you. And through that vulnerability, you're the naked you, which is not you that you without the artifice of you being official. But what it is showing the individual that this is who I am. So you have a space to be you. And that's what I do. In the midst of me talking to people about my vulnerability, I don't talk about me being vulnerable. And that's odd to say, right? How do you teach people to be
Right.
coaching to be vulnerable? How do you consult them to be vulnerable? I teach them about situations that there are day that the self-awareness of you being a leader should be first and foremost on your mind. Just taking for instance the individual that comes in that's kind of ragged from work, horrible drive to work, right? The person that comes in, how would they feel if you notice that? Not notice that with a nosiness, but notice that with awareness is this is not how this.
I think you froze there for a moment, Rev. I don't know if we're both frozen or if I'm frozen. Don't mean to interrupt you if you're speaking. I'll just keep going through the comments here because they're just super, super active. Hey, someone in the chat, let me know. I see a frozen Carl. Are you able to see me? Someone give me a thumbs up in the chat.
Okay. Something
Did you
happened.
freeze? Okay,
Huh?
you froze. It wasn't me. Okay.
No, I think it was me because I didn't see you, so it had to be me. It's that
Oh, okay.
It's this New Jersey internet. Yeah,
Hey,
so
all respect for Jersey. I have family in Jersey. Love for
I
Jersey.
do too as well. The bodies are hidden, right? Yeah. So what I was saying in the response to this question, the way that you don't make it about you is to centralize who you're dealing with and who you're talking to, and the conversation should continuously revolve around them. When I share my experiences, it's in the point and place of where that person is. I don't bring my experience, so it's not a competition of my experience is worse than yours. The competition is there's none. I'm trying to connect with you. And though we may have been through some things that are the same, me bringing minds to your party is not what this is about. So, in essence of that, Jim, ingratiate what they're going through, highlight those that you've been through, and share that as a sprinkle. I call it seasoning. Share that conversation as seasoning. You should never interrupt anyone that's being vulnerable with you because they're in a place right now that they're susceptible to whether they're going to do it again. That's what I say. We're senders and receivers, if I can put it like that. And it's how we receive from someone that's sending if they'll send again. And we are the ultimate in making someone feel okay to share their vulnerability. If I'm talking to Will and I'm okay with sharing things with Will, I'll continue to come back to Will. And I'll continue to share those things with Will at my leisure when I want to, because I feel that's safe. And us as leaders, we have to provide safe places, not places for clicks, not places for favorites, and not places for nepotism, but places where individuals can grow, feel empowered by their growth, and know that they can come to you for the support of that.
And I think when I think back of my career, no one, and I don't want to know the person that believes that they are the best leader, that they never made a mistake. We've all made mistakes.
Yes,
And you
yes.
learn from them, right? That's the important piece. But the things that teach you the most are not the moments where somebody says, "Great job, we love you, Carl, we love you, Rev, we love you, Will." You learn the most when you fall,
Absolutely.
when you know you've hurt somebody, or you could have been better, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's only a bad thing if you repeat that thing on purpose. Like if you're not learning the lesson from not doing the right thing, then you aren't really showing up as the vulnerable leader that you need to be. And I
Yeah,
think that's where you learn. You just said, I don't have the answer, folks. Just let's figure this out. How do we do this together?
that's it. And I look at it as leadership and what it is, right? Leadership is servitude. Most of the times we get it twisted. And I know that from the background of church. Everyone that's in power should take on that. They should take on that, even if you think about the teachings of Christ. We're talking about one, if you believe as such, is the most powerful. But how did he come to the earth? He came in servitude. And if we look at that, that was the prime example of what we should be as leaders. Of course, we have the titles. We may have the name on the doors. We may be the CEOs. But without those that you lead, there can be no you. And leaders have to take on this understanding. I can't truly understand who I'm leading if I'm not vulnerable and sympathetic or empathetic to how they are, because that is the connection. After a while, yes, I use this analogy as well when I talk about the dog that runs to the door. Now, you got a dog that loves you dearly, and every time you go to the door, you come in from work, they're going to run to the door as soon as they hear the key.
Right.
And if you give them a slap or rub them and their tail and they continue that on, they'll continue to do that. But I can guarantee you this: go to the door and just try it a couple days. It won't even take a week, couple days, and give no response to that dog when he runs to the door.
Yep.
About Wednesday or Thursday of that week, that dog will hear the key, that dog will see you come in, and that dog will lay right where it's laying.
Yeah. See ya.
And this is how you got to cultivate those same relationships with people.
Right.
It's not so much about patting people on the back. People just need to be appreciated. it's not so much about making a high stance on someone that has done their job. What it is appreciating the work that they put in doing their job. So we get it twisted. We have somebody that brings in a lot of numbers, or they makes a lot of sales calls, or then we give them bonuses, and we've said to the rest of the people, you're not of their caliber, so your value is not the same.
Right.
As a leader, that can't be tolerated in a team that you're leading. What you have to say is, yes, they may have gotten the most calls, they may have bought the most sales, but you don't ostracize them to be greater than the team. What you do is find ways to reward them so the team can see this as a package. Then you can exhibit the growth through the team, because team members will look at him and say, okay, these are some of the characteristics, attributes that I should take on, that I
Exactly.
should gravitate to, that'll make us a great team. And it won't
Yeah,
be a
you don't want to
disdain
say,
for.
hey, everybody be
Yeah,
like
be like him.
Charlene. She's the best. Be like her, right?
Yeah, right.
You speak to, look at what she's done to help us. Look at how she's
Absolutely.
moved us forward. Wouldn't it be great if we could do it in our own way, our own voice, our own style? If we can all do that, that just empowering.
Yes.
I'm seeing that we're going over time.
Okay.
There's some more comments there, and I hope everybody who's watching stays a little bit longer, because I think Carl and I could speak all afternoon.
Yes, we can speak all that. I appreciate everybody that's coming by. You guys always, as always, drop in the comments, drop in. Will's a wonderful guy. I'm enjoying this.
I'm going to put up on the screen in a little bit how everybody can contact you. But
Absolutely.
This one quote I looked up, because we were talking about vulnerability, right? And I'm all about building community. So I love this. There can be no vulnerability without risk. There can be no community without vulnerability. There can be no peace and ultimately no life without community. And aren't we all just trying to do that in this virtual world, in the social media world, in our own neighborhoods, building a community? If we're going to get out of the mess that we find ourselves in, and as a people, as humans on this planet, we've got to bring in that vulnerability, and we've got to be building communities. We can't be waiting for it to come from the top down. How do we all do that individually? And I'm going to put up on the screen here some more of the comments, because you've just blown up the comments here. People just love you. And I also want to make sure that everybody knows how they can reach you, obviously through LinkedIn and through your website. But I have to have you back, or we have to do an hour. Let's do it with Charlene too. Let's have just a big
powwow, right?
A big powwow. I'm looking forward.
Yeah, the comments are flowing in, and it's one of the hardest things we can do, whether it be in a personal or professional relationship, is to kind of be exposed, right? Because in relationships, we want to have power. And when I say power, it's not so much as being the driving force, but we don't want to be in a place of where we're exposed to someone else knowing, someone else being able to manipulate, someone else being in power of who we are as people. But what we fight so hard to control really diminishes our control. When we fight so hard to guard ourselves from showing vulnerability, we lose so much that we can grow and learn through being vulnerability. And it's sort of like, I guess the best term that I can use is a catch-22. There's going to be times you win, and there's going to be times you lose. But hey, there's a thought. Isn't that like life? Right. Everything's a gamble, right? So if you put it in that same measurement, which I've decided to do for so many years ago, people say that, oh, you can tell everybody everything. No, I can't. But there's things and there's points and places that I feel okay with sharing that. My past, because it's just what it is. It's a vacancy. I don't live there anymore. So in essence of that, that's not going to continue to draw shame into my future. When you don't carry those shames around, no one can hinder you in your growth. A lot of times we let others hinder us that don't even know us. Don't even know our capabilities.
One of my favorite, you said we win or we lose. I love the expression, we win or we learn.
Absolutely.
Right? You get kicked in the face, you get knocked down, life just hands you a whole bunch of stuff. And what do? Sometimes it's really great. You can fly and do wonderful things. And there's other times where you just don't feel like getting out of bed in the morning or moving on. But what do? What am I supposed to be learning from this? How am I going to move on? And I think that's keeping it real. I did put down here, Carl, your website, so people can learn more about you there. Obviously, I flashed up on the screen too your LinkedIn profile, because I know you're very active there, and everybody can keep in touch with you with your lives and all the work that you're doing. So with that, I just want to ask you to have the final word. What is it that you would tell anybody who tuned in today, anybody who's watching the replay? What piece of advice would you give them in terms of being that leader that the world needs today?
The biggest piece of advice I can give you is that leader, and I think someone put in the comments, and they leadership is servitude. If we remember the reason as to why they put us in a leadership position, and I'm talking about true leaders. I'm not talking about those that you've been there for the longest and they just thought that you were the best one to put in a position. Those that you actually excelled at bringing yourself above those that you work with. And if you can do those things in the remembrance of you're there to serve, you'll be an awesome leader. You'll gain and regain that respect that's needed from that position. So evaluate yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, what can I do to be greater for those I lead? That's it. The self-evaluations is the biggest part of it. And yes, Joseph, that is a boom, my friend.
He's Team Boom. So
Yeah.
with that, we went over. I really appreciate you
I
staying.
appreciate you, man.
Oh my God. And we'll just keep this conversation going, and anything that we can do here. I'm here to help you. Let's have this conversation, and I'm going to hold you to coming into New York City. So
yes. Don't tell that to Charlene, man. I've been trying to get to Brooklyn forever.
Yeah, I think she's the Brooklyn lady, right?
Yes,
she's like, well, you don't offer to come to Brooklyn. You know?
Yeah, she's holding me to that too. It's been about a year plus now, but I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep my word.
Okay, all three of us could meet. Okay,
yeah, let's meet centrally. Let's meet centrally. I like that.
Well, I appreciate you. I love what you do. We're going to keep doing this, and I think I booked a slot on one of your upcoming.
Yes, because I can't wait to have you on, man. We're gonna have Real Talk. For those who don't know, Real Talk, we on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Catch us tomorrow, and we'll be on there. Catch it on my profile, Charlene's. We also on YouTube, Facebook, as well. Come and check Real Talk, where we have real conversations, and our slogan is where real recognize real. And it doesn't matter your mantra or what you do. We give good tips, we give expertise, and we give quality of conversation to uplifting, taking people to the next level. So we definitely.
I know we're not supposed to have favorite characters on the show, but I have to tell you, I love you, Carl. I think I'm allowed to say that.
Yes.
I think I have a little extra love for Charlene because she just knows how to grab that mic and keep the show going.
Don't tell her that, man. Don't tell her that, man. Oh my God, I won't hit the end of it, man. I won't hit the end of it, Will.
Well, thank you
for having me, man.
We'll do this again. I really appreciated it, and thank you everybody who's watched live today and on the replay.
I appreciate you.
Connect with Carl. He's great.
Absolutely.
Take care.